Ah, the joys of postcoital sleep. This is what allowed me to handcuff my wife's hand to our custom-made handmade ash headboard. She didn't wake up immediately. She cautiously opened her eyes and then screamed. Her scream woke up her lover, Bob Simmons, who quickly discovered that his wrist was also handcuffed. Bob's scream was a little more manly as he fell off the bed, twisting his arm and cutting his wrist. He scrambled back onto the bed, and the words he was about to say stuck in his throat. I assume that when your lover's husband wakes up, standing at the foot of the bed with a large caliber revolver pointed at you, he will do this. Did you guys sleep well? I asked. My God, Jerry, this is not what it looks like. My wife sobbed. Well, let's figure out what it's like, I said. Don't do anything stupid, Bob croaked. His eyes were still fixed on the .35 Magnum in my hands. It made sense, as I was shaking a little with rage and sadness. And here's the man you decided to leave me for. If you were still my wife, I'd have to defend your honor. But since it doesn't look like it's going to matter anytime soon, I really don't care. It's interesting that he still thinks so highly of you, I replied. Barb ignored both of our comments. Jerry, please put the gun down and let's talk about this. That shitty head isn't worth going to jail for, she pleaded. Wow, I think a rose has really blossomed in this relationship, huh? He calls you names, and you call him names. I thought you'd treat him with a lot of respect. After all, he's the one you think it was worth separating us for. I replied sadly. Jerry, we're not breaking up. I screwed up a lot, but we can handle this. I'll fix it, I promise, she sobbed. How are you going to do it? Are you going to go back in time and not use it? Because that's the only way I can have anything in common with you in the future. I loved you so much that my life would be hell if that happened. I don't want to go back to that place again. But if the alternative is to live with the wrong fool, what options do I have? I asked. I put the revolver to my temple. Maybe it would be easier to just pull the trigger like that. Jerry, no. Stop it, she screamed. Do it, he shouted. I slowly lowered the revolver. An idea struck me. I opened the barrel of the revolver and pressed the plunger to release 6 rounds. They fell to the floor, and I bent down and picked one up. I heard a grunt when this asshole tried to break the headboard he was attached to and failed. What a loser. He calmed down when I picked up a lone cartridge. A look of horror crossed Barb's face. This is a .35 Magnum cartridge that weighs 125 grains. When the bullet leaves the barrel of this revolver, it flies at a speed of 1,500 feet per second. When it hits something hard, it flattens and almost triples the area of impact that it can damage. Even if you survive the impact, it will certainly create a wound that will cause you to bleed out, I said, after making sure I got their attention. I inserted the cartridge into the drum. Barb, you know how much I loved gambling before we met. In fact, it almost ruined us in the first few years of our life together. I stopped for you. Don't get me wrong, I benefited from stopping, but I only had the strength to quit because I loved you so much, I said sadly. I tilted the revolver back a little and spun the drum. While it was still spinning, I flicked my wrist and inserted the drum back into the revolver. Since I really don't know what to do, I'll let chance decide. The finger of fate, if you want, I said. I slowly pointed the revolver at her lover. Since Bob is the guest of honor here, I feel like I should start with him. Would you like me to record something for your wife or daughters, Bob? I asked. It's going to be very lonely in that house at 726 Maple Lane if you end up eating that bullet, Bob. Your wife Allison and your twin daughters Zoe and Chloe will be devastated enough when they see the package my investigator sent them. I was thinking about sending a few less photos, but I decided that your girls need to know exactly what you were doing late at the office. I also took the liberty of including photos of your other 2 cheaters, just so she gets the full picture. I didn't think he could get any whiter, but when I pointed the revolver at him, he turned even paler. I cocked the hammer back. He closed his eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. I thought he was going to faint, but he came to his senses. Of course, the sheet around him started turning yellow when he wet himself. You survived this round. Maybe you'll see your pretty daughters again. I replied calmly. I pointed the revolver at my wife. What about you, Barb? Are you ready to meet your creator? You went to church last Sunday. I assume you confessed your sins. If you die today without being able to confess, will you go to heaven or hell? Unless things have changed, is adultery still considered a sin in your religion? I asked her. Yes, she whispered with her eyes closed. I'm sorry, what did you say? I asked her. Yes, Jai, adultery is a sin. It's a sin against your spouse, and it's a sin against God. I've never admitted to what I did. I'm going to hell if this bullet hits me, she said. Well, let's see if your God wants you to live, I replied, cocking the trigger back. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. She sobbed when I pointed the gun at my temple again. I was in such a dark place before you came into my life, Barb, I told her. The only time I felt any good was when I was playing in that winning streak. It's never been about money. It was all about the excitement. I remember thinking about how kind and gentle you were when you treated my hands that night in the emergency room. Gino's thugs really did something to me. I told myself that if I had a caring woman like you in my life, I wouldn't have to play. Have I ever told you that it was the memory of your hands bandaging mine that made me stop? I paid off Gino that night and have never gambled since. I know that life will turn into hell without you. You're my rock. If this bullet hits me, then my suffering will be over. You can't hurt me anymore. I almost wish it would happen, I told her quietly. She sobbed when I pulled the trigger of the revolver again. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. My wife screamed. Damn it, Bob swore. I pointed the revolver at my lover. Since this could very well be your last moments on Earth, Bob, please tell me why you're after married women. I really don't understand this. Your wife is attractive, and your daughters seem charming. Why? I asked. Please, boy, don't kill me, he begged. I shrugged and pulled the trigger back with my thumb. He suddenly burst into tears. It's all about chasing, finding what turns them on, and then playing them off. Your wife was a little unhappy with you. In any married life, even a very good one, there are rough edges and mutual claims. All I had to do was emphasize a little bit how useful she was, and she craved me passionately. Anyway, this was supposed to be the last time. As soon as I use someone else's wife in her husband's bed, the game ends and I win, he sobbed. This guy seemed to have some kind of problem. He looked pretty pathetic lying on the dirty sheets. I should have taken a picture, but I didn't want any incriminating evidence. I heard him groan, trying to break the headboard again. I looked into his eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. The asshole lost consciousness. I raised my revolver and pointed it at my wife. Well, it's either you or me. I'm a little sad that my lover dodged a bullet. I love you, Barb. I almost hope it's not you. Everything would be much cleaner if I came home, found you two in bed, and then couldn't stand it and killed myself. You'd be alive. I wouldn't have to deal with murder. All this pain would go away, and you'd be free to make love to whoever the hell you want, I told her sadly. She was trying to stay calm. At that moment, we were both hanging by a thread. Jerry, please stop this. You've made your point. Bob lost consciousness from fear, sitting in his own urine. You've won. Put the gun down, and we can convince Bob not to press any charges. You haven't done anything that can't be fixed. I want to stay with you, but if you put the gun down, I promise to sign any divorce decree that you present to me. If I can't convince you to leave me, I will spend every day atoning for my sins. Please don't do this, Jaya, she begged. Barb, I don't think I'm Jerry anymore. When I found out what you were doing, I was so angry, and then I found out that you did it in my bed. Well, something inside me died. I think I'm the finger of fate right now. Let's see if your time has come. I pulled the hammer back with my thumb. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. Barb started crying when I pointed the gun at my head. It seems that fate has decided. I love you, Barb. I'm sorry it came to this. I hope that you will find happiness, I said, slowly pulling the trigger. Jerry, please don't, she screamed, trying to break the headboard she was handcuffed to. I'll leave or I'll stay, and you can beat me senseless. Please don't do this. Oh God, help me. Help. Stop it, she screamed. It's better this way, Barb. I love you, I said sadly. I closed my eyes. I pulled the trigger. Author's note. I really wanted to end this story here. According to the event, I tried to do it where the poor guy was so upset that he just wanted to kill him. However, I think both of my readers would be disappointed. So I'll leave it up to you. Scroll down for the epilogue or leave it here and think about what happened. Click. The hammer fell on the empty chamber. Perhaps I should explain. You can see that as a player I'm pretty good with my fingers. Gino crippled my left arm, but my right was still pretty good. Card tricks, shuffling chips, and tossing coins, all this develops your dexterity. So getting the cartridge out of the revolver's barrel is not that difficult, especially when your audience is focused on the barrel. Tilting the revolver back to turn the cylinder gave me enough cover to take the cartridge out of the revolver and put it in my palm. After that, it was all a game. Why? Because I wanted them to feel fear and pain, but I wasn't ready for the ordeal for these jerks. Let's get back to our story. I laughed so hard when I saw the look on my wife's face. What? Did you really think I was going to jail because of you two? Huh. I managed to suffocate, trying to catch my breath. Still laughing, I bent down and picked up all 6 cartridges from the floor. This time I loaded the revolver for real. There's no point in taking risks. I threw the key to the handcuffs to my wife. She was sobbing and seemed to be slightly out of breath. Idiot Bob was coming to his senses. Barb was still sobbing and made no move to take the key. I noticed that Bob was concentrating on the key, but he was looking at me, wondering what to do. Take the key, asshole. Take your clothes and get out of here, I told him. Consider this an object lesson, Bob. You're allowed to live right now, but if I hear anything from the cops about today, I'm going to kill you and your family in the most painful way possible. If you keep your mouth shut, it will save not only you, but also your wife and children. I told him in the most serious tone. Would I actually do that? Damn it, no. But I hope Bob thought I was serious. Otherwise, I could have gone to jail for more than a few years. When all was said and done, Bob didn't say a word about what had happened. Barb was depressed, but signed the divorce papers without any complaints. It helped that it was a pretty fair deal in terms of money. The only thing I asked for was my grandmother's wedding ring, and for her to take back her maiden name. She moved to Grand Rapids and sends me happy birthday on Facebook. It doesn't look like she's going on dates, but I'm not browsing her social media page. I wasn't kidding when I said I loved her. I still get angry sometimes because of what she did to me, but I'm moving on. There are more good days than bad days, and there are already several women with whom I am friends with privileges. Bob is divorced, and the last thing I know about him is that he lives in a shitty one-bedroom apartment, paying spousal and child support, which almost broke him. I sent him one instant message before he blocked me. I texted him that if he wanted to get this over with, he could borrow my revolver.